This is Yakuza Kiwami. We're here on the Nintendo Switch. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. That's right, Yakuza has arrived for the Nintendo Switch. At least the first part of what is a very expansive and exciting, or well, thrilling franchise if you have never played it. And now you can take all of the adventures of Kira-san out on the go, and I know I never get that name right. I try my best. So this is the first entry, quote-unquote, in the Yakuza series. There is a prequel called Yakuza 0, which would have maybe made more sense, but I guess they usually, what they do is they do Yakuza 1, 2, and then I think it's 3, and then they kind of go back and do 0. I don't know, we'll see what happens. Maybe 0 is too demanding for the Switch, it's hard to say. But, yeah, it's kind of exciting to see this on the platform, and to dive in and talk about what this really, really great game has to offer. So, I really quite like this. This was, I think, my entryway into the series, Kiwami, because this is technically a remake of, like, the original experience. 2 is my favorite, but I love the Judgment series, which is a bit of a spin-off more than everything overall, which is kind of funny. So, this is a game that is dripping with drama and emotion as you play this individual that was kind of big part of this group of Yakuza. It's kind of like a modern day Japan, or well, it was. So the original kind of setting for this game, at least in the opening chapter, is it's like 95, and 10 years has gone by, something happened, there was this big money issue, there was a murder, there was all these problems that happened, and essentially you took the fall for it, or well, you were the person that was blamed for everything. And now you're freshly coming out of jail and dealing with that situation here in, I guess this would be the second chapter of the game. So, yeah, that's kind of just the opening story segment. This is a very lengthy, expansive narrative. It really does kind of go like on and on and on, but it is great. It is genuinely one of the like most fulfilling narratives I think out there in terms of like an overall story. Like each of these games, I think it's something like 20 hours. It's just utterly ridiculous the amount of game time you get out of playing the Yakuza franchise. And if you're just starting for the first time here on the Switch, there is genuinely too much for you to do and too much fun for you to have, as it's just kind of wild. I just ended up kind of having story-wise a structuring here where we're basically facing off against your pal? He's essentially your buddy in the overall franchise, but the two of them just kind of like go off on each other with fights and stuff all the time. They're really the best of pals, sort of, I guess you would say, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's a great franchise. It's great to see her on the Switch. I'm hoping that we get additional entries. I mean, it's unlikely that they're gonna stop with just, you know, like one game. I would imagine more will be coming in the future, so hopefully I'll be able to check those out and talk about each of the games, because they're all pretty cool and they all do different things in their own way. It was kind of funny though, because I was literally sitting there being like, it's been so long since this remake here that we're almost at the point where they, you know, some of the improvements that we have with some of the later games actually kind of make me want them to like remake this, if that makes sense, because I do think that there's certain like combat and gameplay improvements that 1 and 2 could kind of use in comparison to some of the others. So yeah, I think I'm actually gonna run out of health here. Yeah, some of these guys are pretty difficult for combat. I was wanting to show a bit of the game, the fact that it's like an open world kind of thing, but we kind of just got stuck into one of these long, lengthy, I guess you would say chunky fights, which is not ideal for kind of showing this off. Man, this guy has just a crazy amount of health, right? Like, it's utterly ridiculous how much health Machiba has. This guy is kind of crazy, because this is like one of the, you're just getting back into it fights, and it's just kind of, yeah, it kind of goes on, doesn't it? But it shows off some of the cool combat and how brutal this game can be. So anyways, here on the Switch, if you're not kind of familiar with this, I guess it's a dynamic 1080p. Like sometimes you can really notice that because the image gets like really soft, it's fairly jagged around the edges. 30 FPS, but the game does frequently have drops performance-wise. Is he gonna like kill me here? We're so close. Come on, give me the ultra ability. Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm trying to like pick him up and do the overkill execution thing on him, but oh, you gotta be kidding me. This is not good. Not good at all. That was a ridiculous fight, but well versed. I almost had him. I almost had the guy. Yeah, 10 years have made me soft, I guess. I almost beat him. Anyways, doesn't matter. So it's like 30-ish FPS, but there's quite a few frame drops. It could go like all over the place. And yeah, I mean, it's the Switch, so it's kind of what was expected, but we do seem to have the full scope of the world, if that makes sense. Like, we literally have the full environment. It seems like the density of people is largely there. Like, the amount of people walking on the streets, the city area seems to be captured pretty well. We've got the full scope of the world, which is nice. The whole, like, I guess you would say map and locale, everything is here and present. It does seem to have a fair bit of pop-in. So, you know, that's not too noticeable, though, because of the way the world's designed. But yeah, I would say overall it's a pretty good looking and running game for something that is ported to the Switch. It is kind of funny, though, because this is a game that's rather old, so the fact that we still need to make, like, such cuts for the Switch is kind of wild, but it's actually amazing that it took so long for this franchise to arrive on Nintendo Switch, considering, like, clearly it's fine and running, and I don't know, maybe they've been trying to prepare the whole franchise to kind of pop them out one after another, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think in general these are really just great games, and I think you can have a lot of fun playing them. Specifically here, like Yakuza Kiwami is a great entry point into the series. It kind of gives you an idea of the characters, the world, the scope of it. It's a nice, full, lengthy, chunky experience that will take you a long time. It's really cool that you can actually take this out on the go. I think that is really, really quite special, because it's a fun series, it's a great brawler, and it's nice to have like a large, mature, narrative-driven, dramatic experience here on the platform, one that offers you a lot of gameplay, whether you're doing the main story. Like, the main story, at least from what I recall, is like 20 hours for like each of these, at least. Not to mention all of the side activities, side quests. You can go play arcade games. I think there's like Club Sagas. Yeah, Club Sagas in this one. And you know, you can go play some arcade games, and you can visit all these different buildings and see all these different things. And there's lots of like little side quests, and it all loads pretty fast too. I don't know if we're allowed in because we're doing like a story segment, but you can load like pretty quickly, segment to segment. Sometimes it takes a second, but for the most part, it's all pretty well running, pretty well performing, pretty seamless gameplay-wise. Be prepared for lengthy cinematics. Like, the game does go on with cinematics for quite a bit. Not just like this, but, you know, there's full, like, story-driven cinematics, and then there's discussion points, and yeah, it's a lot of really expansive gameplay that just kind of goes on and on, but like when you're engaged with the narrative and really into what's happening, it's fantastic, because you're like, whoa, there's all this crazy stuff. Again, like intrigue, love, murder, betrayal, and punching things. Lots and lots of punching things in this red light district in the modern day of Japan, because it would be like, what, 95, and then 10 years would be 2005, so things have changed, things have evolved, and you get to see that in the streets too, which is kind of cool. And get familiar with this world, because if you're playing the later like Yakuza games, basically they reuse this world, and then they send you to other places too, and they expand upon this world. So like the city that's open becomes more and more, I guess you would say, free and interesting as your story progresses, but it also, the world itself gets cozy as you get used to this place, and you get really familiar with it as you go across the adventures. And as I said, like, it's really filled with detail and people moving around and doing things. Like, it feels like a lively kind of place, which is great. I guess we're going to Stardust. Usually the map has a indicator on where I'm headed. So the game's interesting from a combat perspective. You're sort of improving your character. You have like stats and skill points, and there's money too, so you can buy certain things and items. I always love these games because they have such detailed, like excessively detailed inner buildings and that. Like this, like just imagine this back probably a decade ago was, I think, when this came to like the PlayStation. And anyways, yeah, the improvements going on there. Never hurts to buy some health stuff. Yeah, lots of food eating. As I was saying, you have like skills to come get your thrills, but no, you have these abilities, you put them into different skill trees, it makes your character more powerful, and that sort of plays into the 4-stance system. So there's like Brawler, Rush, Beast, and Dragon, so you kind of shift your combat styles. And maybe something went down at the club. So we gotta figure out what's going on. Oh, and there's karaoke and stuff usually in this franchise, which is hilarious. And this is one of those cinematic moments that I was talking about. Yeah, there's the casino, the cabaret club, the arcades, the batting cages, crazy characters. There was like a clown dude. there's all kinds of weird, crazy, wild, exciting things to do in this series. It's a lot of fun. And this is all just this game too, but as I was saying, you kind of put your skills in, you improve your character. I personally recommend from a difficulty perspective that you play on easy. This game can be incredibly brutal in terms of like the stamina required to do some of the boss fights. Like this entire franchise. And there's no shame on playing on an easier difficulty to just enjoy the story. And yeah, I would, for me personally, I find these games a lot more enjoyable when I can kind of mow down things and make it through them. The later ones, normal becomes a little bit easier going, but like, it definitely can be quite brutal to do some of the boss fights and some of the scenarios. Like, your health potions are great, and leveling your abilities, if you do like a good enough grinding, you can be strong enough, but like, yeah, some of the combat and stuff like that, it's not necessarily how hard it is, but it's hard because it takes such ridiculous levels of stamina where you're fighting guys. Like, you saw the fight earlier in the video where it was like literally like, what, 5 minutes or something like that? And yeah, it just becomes too much, at least for me, for combat, where you're just kind of like, you know, fighting long boss battles. So putting it on easy is a little bit of a more enjoyable experience in my opinion. So I would recommend that from a difficulty perspective, especially if you're new to the franchise. Like, it can be rather daunting to deal with that kind of stuff. So, you know, just kind of, I guess, keep that in mind if you are coming in here freshly, that it can be a little hardcore. I know some people, you know, they're all like, oh, it's got to be like this for difficulty. And, you know, that's cool and all, but yeah, some people just like to have the fun with it. Can I just do Dragon and then I think just do my activated Ultra ability against him? I kind of wanted to use the... this guy's not having any of it. Okay, I guess I'll go back to that. I lost... oh no, I still got it. Sorry, I'm trying to do my finisher on him, and he's just like, he's having none of it. Okay. You're becoming a problem. Yeah, I wanted to do a finisher, now my finisher strength thing is gone. It's also really cool, as you've noticed, for combat, that you can like pick up things in the environment, so you can like grapple people and kind of punch them and do ultra things, or you can pick up items, like, kind of funny to pick up like bikes and swing them and smack people with them and stuff like that. It is I, the Dojima family. And there's really, you have to like pay attention to all the names and like the characters and everything like that, because there's so many, and there's so many like branching narrative paths for characters and who they are and who they know, and yeah, it's quite an experience in terms of like getting to know everyone, and it makes sense over the course of the story. Like characters, they come and go. There's usually overarching like bad guys and main bosses. The second game's really got some crazy stuff going on. As I said, that's my favorite out of the franchise. Kiwami 2 is just really quite something. Like it's genuinely neat, and this franchise overall is just so distinctly unique and cool, and there's not really anything out there quite like it, because it's a brawler with traditional sort of, I guess you would say, Japan type combat things where there's like roaming hordes, kind of, I guess you would say, like Final Fantasy and stuff like that. Pretty sure like the people you go and fight and you smack around and stuff, but then it's mature and it's intense and you know, it's dramatic and so emotional. I joke kind of like it's a bit of a soap opera like, especially with how crazy things can go, and yeah, it's kind of wild just how expansive it is. And sometimes you get into these cutscene scenarios and the cutscenes just kind of go on and on and on, so it's okay for me to skip some stuff to get to some more you know, action type things to kind of show you the gameplay and everything. It's really impressive is what it is. At the end of the day, I think if you've never played Yakuza, you're gonna have a lot of fun. If you're revisiting Yakuza, it may be a little bit to get used to the lower frame rates that are introduced with the Switch, but for something that you can literally take out on the go, it's pretty sweet, because you can literally just be brawling your way through the story. Like, if you could have the whole Yakuza franchise on the Switch and, like, take it places, to me, that would be really quite exciting. Everything devolves into a fight. It would be really exciting to basically be able to sit there and, like, mulch through these. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're going to be even... Depends on how long you're out and about doing stuff, I guess. Like, it would take a while for you to actually work through the franchise, which is kind of funny. Oh, come on. It just does not want to let me do my ultimate here. There we go, I can do it when he's on the ground. These brutal hits. But yeah, it would be really neat to have the rest of the franchise. And I assume that is the plan, is they're going to start like pumping them out. They've probably... That's likely why it's taken so long to get this on the Switch, is that they want to have like subsequent releases of it. Because that's sort of what we got when they finally started porting them to the Xbox side of things, was... You know, we got 1, and then we got 2, and then they were just kind of like bopping them out. And there are so many of these. Like, if again, for those not familiar with the series, there's literally what, 6 mainline, 1 prequel, Yakuza 0 there. So it's like Yakuza 0, and then 1 to 6, and then it goes on to Like a Dragon. So there's technically like then 7 and 8 are things, and then there's one where it's like in this like old era time, like Old Town Japan, back like I think it's like 1500 or something. Anyways, there's Yakuza Ishin, and then there's one where there's pirates. It's like, it is a big franchise, and they have a lot of fun with it. And I have a lot of fun playing the franchise. It's been a complete pleasure taking this series in over the years. And as I said, the Judgment franchise, I would love to see as well, because those games are so genuinely great. Like, if you can play the Judgment games, I love those. I did streams of them. It's like this, it's this world, but you're essentially like a detective, previously lawyer, and yeah, like a private detective. They're really great. So I would recommend checking those out. Those ones would be really exciting to talk about. Anyways, Yakuza Kiwami on the Switch, pretty good looking. Even on a big TV, it's not too bad looking, even on the 4K. And yeah, this is a pretty good effort. I hope the rest of the franchise arrives.